Brandon Reed.
Here.
John Hutchings. Here. John Best. Chris Rossi. Steve Phillips. Bill Woods. Here. Lawrence. Here. Michael Parker. Here. George Larcher. I'm here. Michael Clark. Here.
There's no old business, new business, public hearing, data center, no effect, and then hold.
Okay. We need a motion to leave the regular meeting and enter a public hearing.
I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, go to public hearing, second, Michael.
Support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're in public hearing.
All right, everyone, welcome to the first night of a two-night public hearing. This is in regards to a data center zoning text amendment proposal. At this time, I would like to offer into the record evidence that this public hearing was noticed to the public. Here is a printout of the digital tear sheet used to generate the advertisement in the Ledger Independent. All members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak on this matter. You'll be individuals who wish to speak. You'll come up to this microphone right here behind the TV, and you'll give your names and addresses, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Before individuals, we will have groups who will be given 20 minutes to speak. I think we have 11 groups that have signed up. They will speak from the podium, and some of them will have presentations to give. Now, anyone who has signed up to speak and who wishes to speak, please raise your hands so I can see. Okay. So those people who have signed up to speak and who want to speak, please stand up and raise your right hand. And also, if you submit, just to cover our bases, if you have submitted anything in writing pursuant to our rules, please also stand up and raise your right hand. Okay. Do you swear or otherwise affirm to tell the truth? Please say I do.
I do.
Excellent. Before individuals speak, again, please state your names and addresses when you come up here. You will be asked 2 questions by Chairman Reed. Those questions are, have you been sworn in? Because we want to make sure that you've been sworn in and that we can consider your testimony. And whether or not you are a resident of Mason County. Okay. After the groups have presented, if you all want to, planning commission, we're going to retract this screen and maybe move the tables. And I don't know if we're going to be able to move the TV because all of the cables are kind of mixed in together. We could move the microphone back a little bit or something so you can see them and they can see you. But otherwise, if you want, you'll move the cables so it's more of a line so that you guys can face the out. That's totally it. That's all I have to say. Otherwise, Chairman Reed, proceed.
Okay, first up is Aaron Hicks. Okay, then.
I want to spend a few minutes talking tonight about what we're going to discuss. How did we get here? Responses that the community's raised, concerns that we raised, and the actual text amendment language. And I don't know yet, I heard someone speak about, I don't know exactly what the process is. Well, tonight, we're here for the text amendment. So we're trying to put the rules in place. The planning commission is trying to put the rules in place. If we pass the text amendment, a developer, new developer, would have to come back and also go get the plan approved and get a zoning change. So this is just the first step of that process. Now, the planning commissioners know that, some guys may not know that. So for about the past year, my client, the applicant, has been working closely with Maysville, Mason County Industrial Development Authority. They've been working with East Kentucky Power Cooperative, the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, and others on identifying the right site and community to develop a world-class technology campus. The company is a U.S.-based Fortune 50 technology firm that develops and operates its own data centers worldwide to support its products and services. Because this is part of a global site selection process, we're unable to disclose the company's name at this stage. However, I can assure you it is a well-established organization with a strong track record, responsible for community-minded development. The company supports the county and its planning commission's current effort to establish clear and consistent standards for data center development. This process that we're going through here tonight will help ensure that any future projects in Mason County adhere to the standard that you all create and align with the community's expectations. Now, we believe that this process is designed to put guardrails and to guide development, but not to stop development. We previously provided comments to the text amendment language for this deliberation tonight, and we believe that our comments more closely match the development standards currently in place across the United States. In addition, some of the language and requirements are duplicative, and review should be handled through the appropriate state and federal permitting process. If the county and this commission ultimately adopts reasonable design standards and data centers become a permitted use in Mason County, any future projects we propose would fully comply with all local zoning code, including setbacks, noise limitations, and design standards established through this process by the JPC tonight. Finally, as I've been up here for my third time in the last month and talking with the people from the community, we know that there are concerns. We've heard those concerns from the community. We can say that this company is not a solar or wind developer and has no plans to pursue large-scale renewable energy projects. All on-site, off-site infrastructure improvements, including roads, water, sewer, fiber, electrical, any of that infrastructure would be paid for by the company, not the local taxpayers. One of the later presentations you will hear from EJPC tonight. I want to assure you that this company is committed to helping make sure that there are no increases to electricity or water rates as a result of this project. We've heard concerns about water. This project is currently being designed to be a highly water efficient cooling system using dry cooling technology, which relies on a closed loop system with mechanical chillers and fans, and therefore requires very little water. Environmental compliance is paramount to this company. The project would have to meet or exceed all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. Finally, we understand the concern about noise. We will ensure compliance with all the standards established here tonight by the JPC and work to avoid any adverse impact on neighboring properties. The company will strictly adhere to the local noise laws that we put in place tonight and is committed to being a good neighbor, just like we are in every other community where they operate. Thank you for your time tonight and your thoughtful consideration of this proposed text amendment language.
Jeff Noel, looking at.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Noel,
and I am Secretary of the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. We work with a lot of projects, and let me come back to the original question, am I a Mason County resident? And I am not. But I am going to say that I've spent a lot of time here in Mason County. In fact, when I first graduated from college, I spent a great deal of time here in this community and had a lot of friends. I only say that because the voices, the concerns, the people of this community matter to me. And while my job is to help grow jobs and bring jobs and to work on the kinds of companies that can help move our state forward, I believe very strongly that it is the people and the communities that have to come together to work together to decide for themselves what's best for the future, for the children's future and grandchildren's. And so I'm here tonight for one very specific reason. Our name has been mentioned. We have been involved in the project, and I feel an obligation to be transparent with you, to share with you our position on this project, and to share with you, I think, what our position would be in any movement going forward on the project. From the very beginning, when data centers started moving around, the governor and our cabinet actually put together a list of criteria. And that's really what I want to establish here tonight, so there's no misunderstanding. On any project with a data center, we've laid out quite a few guidelines. And to the company's credit, to those associated with the company's credit, we've had quite a few what I call straight talk conversations about what those criteria need to be, why they've been established, and how we address them and work through them. But first, and I'm going to reiterate what was said earlier, families can't see the power bills go up as a result of this project. That's, without a doubt, the number one criteria that we feel has to be on the table going forward. I think every company must agree to pay their fair share of taxes, without a doubt. And sometimes when you get into the maze of legislation and tax programs and things of that nature, it's real important that the Cabinet for Economic Development, working with the community and the community leaders, work together to make sure that there is full transparency and there is that understanding that this company must pay its fair share of taxes. And I believe, above all, the company must be a good corporate citizen. And they have to show that right up front. I also think that while I've had a lot of companies and I've worked for a lot of companies, I have to come and give credit to this company by saying it's not a developer. We have a lot of developers flowing through Kentucky about these kinds of projects. This is a company in which the people of the company have stood in front of us and made their statements and provided their information. And they have proposed their plans and how they intend to be a good corporate citizen. So families, you can't see an increase in power. There has to be a fair payment of taxes across the board by this company. And done in a way that makes sense and also for the near term and for the long term. And it has to be a company that's truly a good corporate citizen. Because in the end, what makes great communities are great people, and Mason County has them. Great leadership in Mason County has them. Beautiful assets, Mason County has that. But you also need great companies as part of your community to help us have the kind of future that we all desire. So I'm not here advocating for the project. I'm here to reiterate the process. I give this community, people on this podium, elected officials credit for the way in which they handled this, the commitment to transparency. And I will come back and say we've got criteria that we think have to be met for a project to move forward, but yet I have to give credit where credit is due. The utility company, the company itself, that moved forward, and I think a very forthright, good way. And there is an opportunity to plant a flag in Mason County for a very well-respected company engaging in a very critical service to grow an industry that says this is a community that loves its agriculture. This is a community that has a wonderful manufacturing background. This is a community that is service, has great services to each other. And just as importantly, this flag can say this is a community that knows how to grow high-tech growth industries that can provide great benefits to the community. But we all have to make that decision, and I can now come and share with you the criteria which we are abiding by the best that we go forward. And all I can do is say thank you for letting me be here. But say thank you to everybody in this room who took it upon yourselves to have a responsible interest in the welfare of your community. And any question you ask is a fair question, and I certainly understand that, and I just respect all the people who thank you very much.
Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm going to address the electric utility portion of it. I think there's been a lot of comments about the potential impact on rates. Hopefully, my comments will help to address that concern. East Kentucky Power Cooperative has been a proud part of Maysville and Mason County for over 50 years now. Spurlock Station there on the Ohio River is EKPC's flagship power plant. Today, the plant employs over 250 people, along with hundreds of on-site contractors. Spurlock Station plays a central role in EKPC's past, present, and future. While utility companies across the country have been closing power plants like Spurlock, EKPC has chosen a different path. EKPC is investing in Spurlock Station's long-term future to maintain this reliable, competitive power plant. On the two original units, EKPC has added, invested in scrubbers, precipitators, and other environmental controls to maintain compliance and to ensure a long life for the power plant. Since 2005, EKPC has commissioned 2 new units at Spurlock Station. And those units feature innovative technology to slash emissions while maintaining high efficiency. In the last few years, EKPC has cleaned and closed the CCR ponds at the plant and relocated the materials to a line-capped landfill away from the Ohio River. With these significant investments, I'm pleased to say Spurlock Station is one of the cleanest power plants in the nation. And EKPC continues to invest in Spurlock Station's future. We are investing in technology to co-fire all 4 units at Spurlock Station with natural gas. And this will ensure that Spurlock Station will reduce carbon dioxide emissions and continue operating when strict EPA regulations go into effect in 2030. Over the years, each of these investment decisions has come down to one goal: doing what is best for our 16 owner-member cooperatives and the 1.1 million people that those cooperatives serve in 89 counties. And that includes thousands of businesses. The question always before our co-ops is, how can we provide the most reliable electricity at the lowest possible price to all of our co-op members? EKPC and our 16 owner-member co-ops are not-for-profit organizations. Electric co-ops are based in the communities we serve, and we have a long history of supporting and promoting economic development in those communities. Jobs and investment are essential to maintaining the vitality of the communities we serve and providing opportunities for the future in those communities. Tax base supports schools, roads, emergency services, and other businesses. Large users of electricity help to stabilize electric rates for everyone, especially in the rural areas that we serve. A core principle for all electric cooperatives is we treat everybody fairly, or we try. We serve households along with businesses, big and small. We serve farming operations. We serve large industries that use large amounts of electricity. That is why we maintain separate rate classes for residential, commercial, and industrial members. And within each rate class, or some of those classes, there are subclasses. Each class or subclass uses electricity a little bit different. As a result, their rate structure is designed so that the electric co-op can recover all of the costs of serving those members in that class. If one member or group of members is not paying their fair share, that means that somebody else somewhere is paying more. We work hard to prevent that kind of caution. Now, as an aside, sometimes I refer to electric tariff. That's a rate schedule. This doesn't have anything to do with international imports or China or anything like that. A tariff is a rate schedule. And it's important to note that electric utilities in Kentucky have regulated territories. We have a legal obligation to serve anybody that is located in those territories. If someone decides to build a home, a business, a school, a factory, or a data center anywhere in those territories, our co-ops are obligated to serve. Under federal law, EKPC is required to serve any customer that wishes to take service on the grid. And because we're obligated to serve both on the state and federal level, EKPC believes we should be prepared and proactive in our discussions with prospective large users of electricity, including data centers. And we have been proactive. In the past few weeks, the Kentucky Public Service Commission has approved a data center rate schedule specifically for data centers. This gives EKPC and our own member cooperatives a strong tool to serve the needs of data centers while protecting our other co-op members. This data center rate schedule is designed to ensure data centers pay their fair share. They pay the full cost of electricity that they use and the full cost of any infrastructure that it is built to serve. This means other co-op members will not pay for power plants or power lines needed to serve data centers. The data center rate schedule is designed to identify costs and risks that are caused by data centers and to keep those costs and risks with the data centers, not with our other members. This is fundamental to recognize. So if serving a new data center means EKPC must build a new generator at power, or enter into a new power purchase agreement with another power plant to serve a data center, then the data center bears all of that cost. If EKPC must build a new transmission or a new substation to serve the data center, the data center bears that cost. EKPC developed this rate schedule after studying the experiences of other communities around the country. We carefully consider how best to serve the growing need while insulating our other co-op members from the costs and risks. And we believe the data center rate schedule is best in class for protecting our other members and for unleashing the opportunities that are available to communities, such as jobs, tax base, and investment. We recognize that not all data centers are the same, In fact, their power needs and power usage patterns can vary pretty widely. Some may use 20 megawatts of electricity very steadily. Others may use many times that amount of electricity, but their usage may vary pretty widely from minute to minute or hour to hour. Some data centers may have the ability to adjust their power usage as consumption on the electric grid goes up and down. Other facilities may want to have other data centers may want to have facilities in place so that regardless of what happens on the grid, they have a certain amount of power all the time. Clearly, one size does not fit all. As a result, the data center rate schedule establishes guidelines to govern the development of a special contract between EKPC, the local distribution cooperative, and the data center customer. The rate schedule recognizes that the terms and conditions of that special contract can and should be tailored to the specific circumstances of the data center. Importantly, each special contract must be reviewed and approved by the Kentucky Public Service Commission. And in other words, that means that every data center special contract that EKPC enters into must be determined by the PSC to be fair, just, and reasonable for everyone. At this time, EKPC has not filed a proposed special contract with the PSC for any prospective data center projects. Under the new rate, a facility qualifies as a data center if it uses at least 15 megawatts of electricity and has a load factor of 60% or higher. And basically what that means is that it uses a large amount of electricity pretty steadily. This is likely to require new infrastructure, like substations, high voltage transmission lines, even additional power plant capacity. Depending on the circumstances, that can cost millions of dollars, could cost hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the circumstances. Those costs will be borne by the data center under this rate schedule. The new data center rate schedule recognizes that very large users of electricity can drive enormous daily costs. Costs for power plant fuel, costs for transmission access, and other variable costs. As a result, to protect our other members, data centers will be required to prepay several months of those variable costs into a holding account that EKPC and the local co-op can draw from as we incur expenses. Collateral requirements will provide further protections against costs that could be less stranded if a data center unexpectedly closes before the end of its contract. Data centers needing more than 250 megawatts of power plant capacity must have a dedicated resource. That means they cannot simply buy the power that they need from whatever generation sources are available at that moment on the market. They must have a firm contract for electricity or capacity from one or more power plants. This is important. For years, EKPC has been very vocal about federal policies that are driving reliable power plants out of business. And other states have had policies that likewise are driving power plants in those states out of business. Some of those other states have advanced policies to shut down their reliable, dispatchable power plants and depend heavily on markets and on intermittent resources. Meanwhile, some states have forced the breakup of their vertically integrated electric industries. As a result, the electric retailers in those states don't have the protection of owned assets They're forced to rely on markets to provide the power plant capacity that they need. They're hoping that somebody, almost certainly in another state that owns a power plant, will be able to provide the capacity that they need. Now, the states that close their power plants are the ones that are screaming the loudest about high electricity bills. Kentucky has taken a much wiser, much sounder approach. Kentucky's policymakers support grid reliability. As a result, EKPC has invested in keeping reliable power plants open here in Maysville and in other places. We've kept those operating to serve the needs of Kentucky's homes and businesses. As demand for electricity grows, EKPC has added reliable power plants and capacity to serve that growing need. This protects cooperative members from volatile market prices because we own the assets. EKPC's data center rate schedule is rooted in the idea that large loads must have firm generation, and they must pay for those resources. They cannot simply lean on markets. In the past several years, EKPC has received dozens of inquiries from prospective data center developers. Most of those have come and gone. But EKPC has had ongoing discussions with the company that is interested in locating a data center right here in the Maysville area. We've explored various ideas, possibilities, configurations, with a wide range of potential power needs and resources to meet those needs. Those discussions continue. Due to contractual agreements, EKPC cannot disclose details. This is routine with most prospective economic development projects, including projects that are much, much smaller than this one. But EKPC's senior management has met with senior management of the company. We can confirm it is a Fortune 100 organization that is a well-known brand name. The company has stated their intention to build, own, and operate the data center facility throughout its lifespan. We believe this is a strong positive for this community and for our cooperatives. EKPC is confident this project offers a unique opportunity for jobs, investment, and tax base for the Maysville communities and for the state of Kentucky. EKPC supports this project. Close proximity to Spurlock Station and existing transmission infrastructure will help to minimize the impact of additional electric infrastructure. In addition, EKPC believes serving this load will help to stabilize rates for all co-op members. The data center rate schedule will insulate cooperative members from data center costs, and data centers, like all members, will contribute to the bottom lines of our not-for-profit cooperatives. Due to their large relative size, data centers will make a large contribution to that bottom line, helping to maintain stable rates for all co-op members. In terms of the text amendment before the Commission, EKPC has reviewed that document, as well as proposed changes submitted by the company. EKPC supports those changes with the understanding that our cooperative will have power and the infrastructure in place when needed. When EKPC is planning a significant power plant or power line project, we routinely engage the public by providing detailed information about what we're planning and how we expect it will impact the community. We will conduct public meetings to provide information and answer questions when there is a project to discuss. Further, we are subject to regulation by the Kentucky Public Service Commission, which requires review and approval of qualifying generation and transmission projects. This provides further opportunities for the public to participate in the future. This is an opportunity for this community. It's an opportunity for this community, this region, and this state. And EKPC looks forward to working with Maysville and Mason County as we continue to focus on providing affordable, reliable, cost-competitive power to existing and new members in our cooperative family. That concludes my remarks. If I have a minute or two, or a couple of things that were brought up last week during Mr. Shaw's comments that I'd just like to quickly address. There was a question about if there's a circumstance where they're rotating animals, rolling blackouts, would that impact the data center? And the answer is the data center will be treated like any other cooperative member. They will be exposed to that same risk. And I believe that is probably why a lot of data center customers are interested in having on-site backup generation. Because of situations like that, like a blackout or a tornado, ice storm can affect service, as we all know. Also, there was a question about whether coal would remain a primary fuel for Spurlock Station as we co-fire that and the answer is yes. So what HKPC plans to do is we add natural gas capabilities. All 4 of those units will be able to operate on natural gas up to 50% of its capacity. But we will retain the ability to run each of those units on up to 100% coal. So coal will continue to be the primary fuel. That's a tool to be able to manage CO2 emissions. If we don't do that, the other options under the greenhouse gas rule, the EPA rule, is to either shut down that power plant, I believe in 2032, or spend about $11 million on experimental technology for a plant like the Spurlock Station. That would be very expensive for everybody in this room. Okay. I believe we've chosen to afford it. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to speak a little bit about water and wastewater. We all know that Maysville is an old community. Consequently, there are forms of water and wastewater systems that are over 100 years old. Despite significant efforts by the city of Maysville, there are many areas of the water and wastewater system that the aging infrastructure is difficult to maintain reliable water and wastewater service, and has resulted in non-compliance in several occasions. The potential project, as part of their investment in Maysville and Mason County, is paying for both water and wastewater lines. The potential project has hired an industry-leading modeling firm to develop and calibrate water and wastewater models for the city of Maysville. These will be indispensable tools that can be used to identify deficiencies and possible issues within the existing system, as well as being useful tools to facilitate planning and design of future projects and infrastructure improvements. This will be a benefit to all of Maysville's water and wastewater systems. The potential project is currently planning to utilize a dry, closed-loop cooling system at the proposed facility. This type of cooling requires no water during the operation of the facility to cool equipment. The majority of the water demands of the facility will be temporary in nature and will be during the construction phase of the project. After construction, the water demands of the facility will be very similar to any other industry with the same number of employees. Once operational, water demands will be limited to what is needed for employee health and safety at the facility. Things like bathrooms, kitchens, sinks, toilets, drinking fountains, all of those types of things to support the employees. Current projected water demands are as follows: 500,000 gallons per day peak demand during the construction phase, 300,000 gallons of fire flow, which is only needed if there is a fire, 200,000 gallons per day peak demand during operation of the facility, with less than 100,000 gallons per day being the average at the facility during operation. All of these water demands will be supplied by water from existing water utilities, not from water wells at the facility or on the facility property. In the event that cooling water is needed in the future, the project has committed to draw water directly from the Ohio River so as not to adversely impact any of the local water utilities. A closed-loop dry cooling system does not produce a cooling water waste stream during operation. Therefore, the wastewater from the facility will be limited to domestic wastewater from kitchens, sinks, toilets, bathrooms, as discussed before. That's similar to any other occupied building. The wastewater will then be conveyed to Maysville's wastewater system and will be treated at the Maysville wastewater treatment plant, just like any other wastewater in the community. The potential project is funding all of the required infrastructure improvements to allow Maysville to deliver the needed water to the site for construction and operation, as well as the wastewater infrastructure needs to convey the wastewater to the wastewater. In addition to the required infrastructure improvements that are needed to operate the facility, the proposed project is also making significant investments in the form of infrastructure improvements to improve the reliability and resiliency of Maysville's water and wastewater systems. The large-scale improved reliability will be a benefit to all of Maysville's water and wastewater customers, including their existing industrial and residential customers. The estimated investments for the necessary improvements to support the potential project are over $11.6 million in water improvements, over $12.8 million in wastewater improvements. The additional investments into Maysville's existing system are estimated at $14.6 million in water improvements and $2.1 million in wastewater improvements. That's a total investment of approximately $40 million in water and wastewater systems. The potential project will be a net benefit for the region from a water and wastewater utility perspective. The water demands of this facility are in line with many other industries for construction and operation use. Maysville has adequate capacity to meet these needs at their treatment plants, and all of the necessary infrastructure improvements will be funded by the potential project and will not be paid for by utility regulators. In addition, the potential project is investing almost $17 million into additional projects beyond what is necessary for their facility. Additional projects that would have required financing and would have been paid for by utility regulators. The potential project's investment reduces that burden on all utility customers. The modeling and the additional system improvements will improve Maysville's water and wastewater systems for all of their customers, industrial, wholesale, and residential.
Okay, good.
members of the commission, and Mason County residents. My name is Steve Delbianco. I'm president and CEO of NetChoice, trade association representing America's tech companies. I'm here to give a national perspective on the data center industry and expansion. But before that, a little bit of a personal perspective. I grew up in western Pennsylvania. I worked in steel mill on the same river that flows right by Maysville. Today, nearly all those mills are silent. Gone also are the paying jobs, the high-paying jobs, and all the businesses who serve the mills. But earlier this summer, President Trump, Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, announced $100 billion of new data center and energy investment in western Pennsylvania, specifically in Homer City, which had been the site of America's largest coal power plant, and which was closed down 2 years ago. It will now become a gas-fired power plant. It'll generate 4 gigawatts of power to drive the local economy. Now, Google, one of my members, is the lead investor for that project in Pennsylvania, and they went public about that earlier this summer. But they did so after the zoning and permits were locked down. Now, I've heard folks say that you want more transparency about your project data center here, but I can tell you, the company involved is an American tech leader whose services most of you in this room use every single day. And the recent data center investments are in the back of the handout that I provided to the commissioners. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft spent $100 billion last year on investment in data centers. That is far more than energy, telecom, pharma, or manufacturing spent in America last year. America's tech industry is number one when it comes to investing in America's future and America's communities. And looking ahead, we have $2 trillion of commitments for new data center and AI investments. And that includes 6 companies, Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and OpenAI. So please understand, this project is not an inexperienced speculator like the outfit who tried to shoehorn a data center into Oldham County earlier this year. But you can probably see why an industry leader would not want to be identified at this stage before the ordinance is approved and before we start the long slog of permits. The reason is, if this project is blocked or withdrawn for any reason, that is a huge disappointment to Mason County taxpayers and those looking for the high-paying jobs. It's also a disappointment for a public company because they don't want to risk that much concerns to so many local residents, to customers, and to shareholders, since most of us hold these companies in our retirement accounts. So it begs the question of why do we need so many data centers? Why do we need to build them? Well, look at your own phones, and I think you'll understand why. Nearly every app on your phone uses the internet to retrieve, process, and store the data that you use every day. Think about all your pictures and videos of family and friends, vacations, trips, and none of us, myself included, ever delete our old photos and videos. So the storage requirements just grow and grow and grow. Now, think about all the times that you posted and shared your images and videos via messages and social media. That makes additional copies. It requires additional storage. How about all of the streaming you do for video and for music and audio? You check the weather and the news, do your banking, make your Venmo payments, do your email messages, reminders, and calendars. Look, in addition, every business organization, every college and government put their operations online. And we like to say all of that is in the cloud. I flew down here today, and I saw none of your photos floating in the clouds. You know where they are. They're all in a data center. A large building about the size of an aircraft carrier, 2 stories high. It is a data center as we know them in America today. And we are building data centers not for us. We're building them for you. It's your demand for data processing storage in the cloud that drives it. It's so bad, so good, I should say, that we need to add a new data center about once a week right now. And that was before artificial intelligence revolution has hit. So that's why we build data centers. Let me answer the question about where do we go. Well, we can serve anyone in this country from a data center that's located anywhere in the country because our internet connections are so small. So where do we choose? We choose states and communities that have electrical power and where the local community welcomes and values some benefits. Billions in construction spending, which lasts several years. Do the local benefits want upgrades to your energy grid that we, the industry, pay for? Do your community members, your high schools and MCTC, do they want 6-figure data center tech jobs for high school grads and trade school grads? And for property tax payments that your board can allocate to lower your rates and at the same time invest in infrastructure, schools, and services. I give you an example. I live in Northern Virginia. In Virginia's Loudoun County, data center sales tax, data center property tax revenue has enabled the county to reduce the real property tax rate for homeowners every year for a decade. All right, I'm turning to what's the experience with electricity bills, since that concern is updated. Well, regular customers who live in states and communities where data centers have been for the last 5 years. I'd like to talk about Northern Virginia again, where I live. That is the home to more data centers than anywhere else on the planet. Beijing is a distant second to Northern Virginia. And according to the Department of Energy's Berkeley Labs, just concluded a study, and for the commissioners, I provided a copy of a summary of that. Virginia's power demand grew 15% over those 5 years, okay? When many data centers were coming online. But that growth in the grid, quote, helped keep many other costs flat on a nominal basis and declining after adjusting for inflation, because fixed costs were spread over more load and absorbed by the large data center customers. Department of Energy found the same thing with other states that have a lot of data centers. Data centers absorb fixed costs. They reduce the allocation of those costs to the other electricity ratepayers. That is why rates on a nominal basis are flat to declining. Now, when the Washington Post reported on this, they ran the headline, quote, "There's a reason electricity prices have been rising, and it's not data centers." I've got a link to that article in the handout. So the track record here is quite good for the electricity bills in places where we build data centers, but you don't have to just bet on a track record. EKPC, as I just explained, is subject to a data center tariff approved by the Public Service Commission that ensures you don't bear the cost that my industry brings to the area. Okay, on water, I'll just add a national perspective. Most new data centers that we build today in this country use no water for cooling. They use electrical air conditioning, like this building uses, or your car in your home. Now, for data center kitchens and bathrooms, yes, they use some water for a couple of hundred people that work there. But that is less water than a courthouse for school use. Now, many data center projects also pay, nonetheless, for water infrastructure, such as upgrading the Maysville system discussed earlier. And where water is abundant, a data center can reduce its electricity use. If they even say run a river cooling, which is the case with the coal station here, and with the power plant, and with all the power plants. You hear back to what I'm saying. So, about the Trump handout that I had on the table. President Trump is doing all that he can to help America beat China on the AI race. It's like the Manhattan Project of our generation. And one of my handouts lists the executive orders from President Trump to clear federal roadblocks to energy grid investments and data centers. It does nothing to touch local zoning rules. Local zoning rules are already shown locally. And last month, President Trump announced the Genesis Commission. This is to help American AI solve our most challenging problems: energy, medicine, and national security, from nuclear fusion to curing cancer. So Mason County can be an important part of the President's effort to keep America first. So I'll close. I remind you that I started by saying I had roots in Western Pennsylvania and how data centers were reviving the energy grid and the economy there. Now Maysville and Mason County have the chance to embrace data centers. This project helps to extend the life of Spur Line, and it has my industry pay for upgrades to your aging power grid and expand power production. Number two, our investment will invigorate your local economy during multiple years of construction as we build multiple data centers. Number three, 400 high school and MCTC grads will earn six-figure salaries to run the data center. They don't have to commute and move to another city in Kentucky or Cincinnati. They stay home, earn a great living, and support a family here. And finally, data centers will pay enough property tax in Mason County to allow you to have relief on the property taxes you pay on your homes and businesses. They should go down. And the county can still pay for improvements in infrastructure, schools, and public service. So I hope you will welcome the benefits to Mason County and Maysville of data center development, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Good evening, good evening. I'm your Mason County Judge Executive, Owen McNeil. I think it's important. We say thank you to the volunteer and unpaid citizens that serve on our JPC. Most of the time it is such an involved position, but we greatly appreciate you and appreciate the service you're doing for your community. JPC commissioners, the commissioners and I, with fiscal court, asked you to consider a text amendment for data centers and technology campuses for a few reasons. Yes, one reason is because of our current interest from the apex of the industry, a global top 10 U.S.-based company that we worked hard to bring here. We'll talk about that specifically here in a minute. The other dominant reason, or one of them, is the fact that we currently have the Commonwealth's preeminent power plant located here in Mason County, EKPC Spurlock Power Generation Station, as well as the fact as we have our majestic Ohio River right next door. The last 18 months, technology spending and data centers have been about the only industry expanding, and without their spending, our national economic activity reflects more recessionary tendencies. In other words, the last 6 quarters, they've been about the only big projects going, and given our assets, it's only a matter of time until a serious one looks at our area. As I stated in my letter to the community several months ago, this is our community's opportunity to dictate how we want these governed here. I believe we're 3 to 5 years away from data centers being as common as water treatment plants, and that we'll have one of these critical infrastructure pieces in about every 5 counties. Agnostic of any current interest we have, what do we as the citizens of Mason County want? My opinion is that we leverage them much more than they leverage us. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to tell you 2 stories. First, I don't know, maybe 8 months ago, I asked my good friend and resident historian, Ron Bailey, to see what he could dig up regarding community sentiment back when the DuPont Chemical Company purchased some 1,800 acres near Dover in 1947. Ron sent me some articles from the local newspaper about the stir when a high-end passenger train rolled out of Cincinnati on a regional tour of potential sites. For one of the stops, the train, filled with the full board of the DuPont Chemical Company, stopped in a field just east of Dover and disembarked. There to greet them was the mayor of Maysville and a line of local civic leaders who all did what back then must have been the first economic development site visit. About 2 months later, DuPont closed on the acreage adjacent to the Ohio River to immense local benefit. About 4 years later, in 1951 or so, executives with RECC, East Kentucky Power Co-op, and EKPC announced the purchase of much of that acreage from DuPont, announcing plans for what ultimately will become the Spurlock Power Plant. While it took 20 years for construction to start, one would be hard-pressed to argue that Spurlock and our cooperative partners with EKPC have not been huge partners in our community's growth, foundational partners who provided the high-paying, family-sustaining jobs that have kept Maysville, Mason County, and northeastern Kentucky vibrant and on the map. It wasn't without some struggle. After plans were made public for what was initially a 3-plant coal-fired deal, a group of community members led by Dr. Mitchell Dillon objected. They fought the development, but ultimately their lawsuits gave way to what I believe we can all agree has been a fantastic community partner. Today, Spurlock and our EKPC corporate partners, in their not-for-profit form of a cooperative, have grown to become fantastic community partners. Since my childhood here in Maysville, anyone working in EKPC had a stable, high-paying job that empowered their lives, their families, and so much more. Yet the cooperative has seen its ups and downs. However, on a whole, they've been a major portion of northeastern Kentucky. I bring this up as anything new or different certainly can be alarming for a conservative community like Maysville and Mason County. But it does not have to be bad. Taking advantage of and capitalizing on opportunities have made Mason County who we are. The other story is one of Prineville, Oregon, located in northwestern Oregon, out near the better known Bend, Oregon. Prineville is located in Cook County, and for most of the 1900s was more an agrarian community, with the biggest thing going being the timber industry. In 2007, Prineville's population was approximately 9,500 folks, all of which had some tie to one of 6 or 7 huge industrial timber mills. In 2007, I believe the median family income of someone in Prineville was $19,000 and some change. In 2008, the recession hit, and Prineville's 7 huge industrial sawmills quickly dwindled to one wobbling, and the future was looking rather bleak. Leadership in Prineville knew they needed something in, and in walked the Meta guys who, after a year of vetting, announced they built a data center, followed quickly by the Steve Jobs-led Apple. Following their announcements, business kicked off in the Prineville area. Yes, they had construction headaches, which no one likes, and yes, it got a bit tough to find an apartment for a bit, which no one likes. However, the 2,500 construction jobs that opened up caused an economic boom in their community, not dissimilar to what our community saw back when Spurlock did their 5-year clean coal scrubber project 10 years ago, and everyone here was employed and making money. It gets better. After adding on to their centers over the next decade, Prineville has exploded, not with a bunch of random Yahoo strangers causing problems for the community, but with high-paying, quality employment for their citizens, opportunities for the graduates, and funding that supports everything around, from schools to local governments to animal shelters. In 2020, the city of Prineville did an economic impact assessment of their community. At that point, their population had grown to only 12,000 people. It hadn't exploded with strangers, but it healthfully had grown. Their timber industry rebounded, and their economy had diversified to include high-paying, career-sustaining tech jobs that pushed their median family income north of $78,000 or $87,000 a year. A huge leap. That 25% unemployment they stared down in the latter half of 2008 all but non-existent in 2020. Today, Cook County, Oregon is the fastest growing, most vibrant county in Oregon. Their Prineville Economic Opportunity Analysis stated, what are the key conclusions? The conclusions about commercial and industrial land sufficiently are, Prineville's economy has changed substantially since the last VOA was completed. Since 2008, Prineville added 946 jobs annually, many of which are related to the growth of data centers. The growth in data centers is the driving factor in increasing average wages in Cook County from nearly $34,700 in 2008 to more than $72,000 in 2022. In addition, Prineville expanded or altered its UGB 6 times between 2012 and 2017, primarily for data center development and expansion, all in the southern part of the city, in areas with light industrial zoning. Prineville is forecasted to grow in both commercial and industrial employment sectors. Prineville is planning for growth of 2,697 new jobs in the city over the 2025 to 2035 period. About 1,361 of the jobs will be in commercial and retail services. I believe Prineville, Oregon's last decade is a pretty good indicator of our next decade. Overall, here are my thoughts. Innovative project design. Most employers stumble into our community. Our project team, consisting of Tyler and our economic development team, EKPC and RECC's team, and others, have consistently and consciously maximized every opportunity. We've not only claimed benefits for our community, but ensured. Over the last year, I've traveled to several of these hyperscale data centers. While all have fences and standard commercial security, I don't hear anything in Lancaster, Ohio. All I see is progress in New Albany, Ohio. No one likes construction evidence in the outcry from our widening project in AA Highway and US 68, but it does indicate progress and momentum. Your role on this board is to come up with setbacks, height restrictions, sound designations, etc. Zoning questions. Today, earlier, you heard from Secretary Jeff Knoll with the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. Basically, highlighting everything we said today is true. The project represents a post-World War II Browns for this next generation. Imagine a Mason County where a high school senior can graduate the best funded public high school in Kentucky and take a job earning $65,000 a year. Imagine that same student going to MCTC for a 6-month certification and earning $80,000 a year. Finally, imagine that same student going to MCTC for a 2-year associate's degree and earning $107,000 per year. And imagine all those opportunities for our youth without one of them having to leave Mason County. Imagine an opportunity that brings high-paying technology jobs, 150 to 200 badged-in jobs per section, and thousands of construction jobs right here. We don't have to imagine what the additional power plant jobs this project brings, as they've already been high-quality jobs in our community since the 50s. With this project, I expect additional jobs from power generation alone. People worry they won't be local jobs. In reality, I worry they will hire too many local people, putting a strain on our existing manufacturing. All of these jobs, literally, are on the highest end of the spectrum, because remember, we're talking about the preeminent leader in this industry. Literally, the apex of the industry. This group is consistently named as the preferred employer in the industry. Even if there are only 2 jobs, our community cannot discount the amount of investment that comes. I have guarantees that this project will not represent a financial, amenity, or infrastructure burden on our local community. Well, what's that mean? It means that with most projects, we're paying to run water and wastewater lines to the project. We're financing electric build-outs to a project. When you build your own house, you're financing the portion of the electric generation coming to your house. With this project, we've discussed easily tens of millions of dollars in water and wastewater infrastructure that will be designed, built, and donated to Maysville Utility. We're trying to do the same for Western Mason. All of you are tired of the aging system we currently have with line breaks to levees and low pressure. You're tired of saying, not only does this project bring jobs, but it essentially rebuilds the western half of Maysville Utility. For Western Mason, they'll realize a guarantee for any lost revenue that may be represented in lost farm meters. Not only that, they will gain these guys as a customer for any available potable water they have available. It guarantees in writing no lost revenues, given they're a brand new system predicated on bond financing. That's important. And rolls out additional opportunities to serve new clients in terms of housing, projects, and other economic opportunities. Collectively, it's easily puts Mason County and Northeastern Kentucky at the top of the list for a new $50 million regional water treatment facility that we're hoping the state helps us with. Now let's look at electric. Yes, they'll utilize an immense amount of electricity. However, EKPC's Public Service Commission approved rule mandates that the prospect must prepay for all electric generation, transmission, distribution, equipment, and electricity. Remember, EKPC is not for-profit cooperative with essentially a math equation that determines cost. If, on one side of your ledger, you force industrial data centers and technology campuses to prepay for all their equipment, electric, doesn't it make sense that at a minimum it stabilizes residential rates? It's a math question. You can talk about the PJM national grid. EKPC makes all of the power with Spurlock and Cooper Station. The only time they sell electric into PJM is when they have extra and can make a little, providing unused electrons to systems without generation. It only helps stabilize bills for us. Yes, inflation catches every asset. However, any increased costs on EKPC's grid won't come from this project. To everyone, I'm your Mason County Judge Executive. My job is to ensure we have a growing, vibrant community in all facets. My job is to literally worry about everything, which I do. We have an immensely overweighted manufacturing economy with manufacturers that have been here a while. We pulled off some innovative tricks like transforming Mitsubishi into a heat pump manufacturer. But I do worry that losing just one of our big, larger manufacturers puts us in a rather precarious position. We have an aging, unattended infrastructure that's showing its wear and tear daily. While we have reascended back to the economic hub of northeastern Kentucky, our traditional place, we will continue to lose our youth to more urban areas, winning some battles but losing the war between that rural-urban divide. While we consider ourselves an agrarian economy, asking farmers, without owning 800 to 1,000 acres, farming is financially difficult. Since my childhood here, most successful farmers have had full-time professional jobs, like working at Brown's or sewing. Most with less than 800 acres have a career that supplements their farming or agrarian lifestyle. Finally, while zoning certainly has its place, most of us, Mason County, are more libertarian than anything else. And most will tell you to let someone do what they want on their own land. It's an opportunity. We've approached those in an area that's not exactly the red belt of Mason County. Their site is surrounded by the state's preeminent power plant, a private coal ash landfill, and our AA highway, and one of Mason County's industrial parks. In closing, let me say this. I believe it's self-evident that this industry is coming, especially given we have Spurlock in the river. I'm asking you to empower our community with regulations that ensure we only accept the best of the best, and that anyone who comes, we leverage them much more than they leverage us. With that, EKPC's tariff, mandating they prepay for all electric and equipment, as well as the caveat that they must prepay for all water, wastewater infrastructure, limits our community to only the top level. I applaud the prescribed limits on setbacks, sound, and others. I'll also go further in saying Mason counties shouldn't be afraid to win. And I assure you, this project will be a huge win. In addition to the thousands of jobs that will reinvigorate and turbocharge our region, we will see revenues that empower our community. With one project's first region, we will see a doubling of our local revenues. Currently, my budget at the county is about $25 million, of which, say $9 million, comes from local property, tangible, occupational, and insurance premiums. One region of this entity doubles that amount, while also bringing in some $9 million to our schools. Doesn't that amount paid into our community lighten the load for everyone else? With assistance from the state and federal government shrinking year after year, that extra revenue is more than just additional paving, amenities like dump trucks, and additional shelter space. It's our community's control of our destiny, plain and simple. This project represents us diversifying our economy, growing our opportunities, and moving forward. Technology and AI isn't an evil word, and by using innovative project design, we're leveraging our new partners much more than they're leveraging us. We're also bolstering and supporting our traditional partner at AKPC, a historical partner that's been supporting our community since the 50s and that original train stop down east of Dover. All of our employees and our local leadership see the value in this project, and I appreciate your interest and time listening.
Good evening, members of the Joint Planning Commission. My name is Tyler McHugh, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Maysville Mason County Industrial Development Authority. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight in support of the proposed data center project and to offer some perspective about what this means, not just for land and infrastructure, but for the future of Mason County itself. Over the past several decades, Mason County has faced a slow but steady decline in both population and employment. In 1980, we were home to nearly 19,000 residents. Today, we sit at approximately 16,900. That's a decline of more than 10% in 2 generations, and it continues. That decline isn't just a number on paper. It's fewer children in our schools, fewer workers in our businesses, and fewer families contributing to the tax base that supports our police, fire, and public services. As of August 2025, Mason County's labor force totals about 7,000 people, with roughly 6,600 currently unemployed. Deeper concern is that our working age population, those between 20 and 64 years old, continues to shrink. The Kentucky Center for Statistics projects that if no major new industries arrive, Mason County's available workforce will decline further over the next decade. That means fewer qualified workers, fewer local employers, and continued economic erosion. In 1990, Mason County supported more than 4,000 manufactured jobs. Today, that number has dropped below 1,500, a loss of over 60% of our industrial employment base. Those were the kinds of jobs that built homes, supported families, and funded our schools. They created the middle class that kept Maysville's downtown thriving and created opportunities for small businesses to succeed. And while some of those jobs have been replaced by smaller firms, logistics and service work, the wage gap is widened. The kinds of family-sustained careers that once anchored this community are now harder to find closer to home. Today, nearly 18% of Mason County residents commute outside the county every day for work. The average one-way commute time is around 26.5 minutes, according to the U.S. Census of American Communities Survey. That means nearly 1 in 5 of our working adults gets in their car each morning, drives to another county to earn their paycheck, and returns home late, spending their most productive hours elsewhere. They buy lunch in another county. They fill up their gas tanks there. Many of them shop and spend their paychecks there. And that's money and vitality leaving Mason County every single day. And just as importantly, it's time leaving Mason County too. When residents spend 2 hours a day commuting, that's 2 hours they're not spending with their families, not coaching youth teams, not serving on civic boards, and not volunteering in the organizations that hold this community together. From fire departments and school programs to church ministries, neighborhood cleanups, and charitable drives. These are the same groups that show up when communities need help, when a family loses a home, when a local student needs a mentor. or when a neighbor falls ill. Mason County has always had a deep tradition of people helping people. But that requires time, energy, and connection. The very thing long commutes take away. I know this firsthand. For 7 years, I commuted more than an hour each way while working for one of the top-rated companies in the world, Procter & Gamble. I'm incredibly grateful for that experience, but it also taught me the personal cost of distance. That commute meant missing milestones, family dinners, and community events. It meant feeling disconnected from the very place I call home. I was contributing to a company that did great things globally, but I wanted to feel that same sense of impact locally, to help build something here, where my time and effort can strengthen my own community. That's what this project offers. A chance to stay close to home and still build a meaningful career. A chance for young professionals to earn competitive wages without having to leave Mason County every month. It also gives countless people who still call Mason County home, even if they've had to move away for work, the opportunity to return, raise their families, and contribute to the community they love without having to sacrifice their careers to do it. The proposed data center project gives us a chance to reverse that pattern. It gives the opportunity to work where they live, to reclaim those hours lost on the road, and reinvest them right here in their hometown. It means local paychecks in local stores. It means parents able to attend their children's games instead of rushing home from Lexington, Georgetown, Cincinnati, and other communities. It means workers who have the time and stability to volunteer, serve, and strengthen the very institutions that make Mason County feel like home. This project isn't just about jobs, it's about keeping our people here, fully engaged, fully invested, and fully present in the life of their community. This opportunity represents one of the largest private investments in Mason County's modern history. Billions of dollars in capital investments spent right here in Mason County. It's not a temporary construction project. It's a multi-building, long-term campus designed to operate for decades with continuous reinvestment in infrastructure, power, and workforce. These jobs, these data centers create a high-paying, highly skilled, and stable. These positions support engineers, electricians, operations specialists, and technology technicians, the kind of careers that attract and retain working families. The impact also extends well beyond the fence line. National studies, including Google and Meta's 2024 impact reports, show that for every one job created by a data center, 5 additional local jobs follow. Those include local contractors, maintenance providers, suppliers, restaurant workers, and hospitality staff. That's how this project builds momentum across the entire community. Not through one big employer, but through sustained, layered impact. Projects of this scale also strengthen the systems that serve everyone, from water to sewer, fire, police, and roads. Mason County, like many rural communities, faces rising costs to maintain and modernize its infrastructure. The Kentucky Infrastructure Authority has reported that small systems like ours face some of the highest per user costs in the state. When the population shrinks, those fixed costs are spread across fewer taxpayers, or ratepayers. The data center's investment helps change that equation. It brings in new revenue, support infrastructure upgrades, and water treatment improvements. It broadens our tax base, helping sustain public safety for funding with our fire and police, and it makes it easier to plan for capital improvements without overburdening homeowners and small businesses. These are tangible community benefits, ones that will last long after the construction equipment is gone. We are also proud to have Eastern Kentucky Power as our regional partner. This project aligns directly with EKPC's Public Service Commission approved data center tariff, which was specifically designed to attract high-load, long-term industrial customers like this one, while ensuring that local residents and small business ratepayers are fully protected. That tariff structure has been recognized within the utility industry as a best-in-class model, bringing balanced economic development incentives with fiscal responsibility. It allows large-scale users to receive competitive rates based on predictable, high-volume demand without shifting the cost burden onto existing customers. In other words, this project strengthens the overall grid and improves load diversity without raising rates for local homes, farms, or small businesses. EKPC's proactive planning combined with the cooperative history of reliability ensures that this project will enhance, not strain, the regional power system. It's a model of how growth can be achieved responsibly and in a way that benefits everyone connected to the grid. Now, I want to acknowledge the questions that have been raised about environmental impact, land use, and community character. Those questions are valid and expected. Every large-scale project requires careful review, and this one is no exception. The IDA, along with the project's engineering team, has worked with environmental consultants and state agencies to conduct detailed studies on soil, water, and habitat. Nothing of significance was discovered, but if it were, the company has made it clear that it would be handled respectfully and in full compliance with preservation laws. We have a choice before us. We can continue to shrink, losing population, losing jobs, and watching our young people leave for opportunities elsewhere. Or we can chart a new course. The data center project gives us the opportunity to redefine our local economy. It gives us the chance to bring home the commuters who leave every morning, to create new tax revenues that supports our schools and services, and to build confidence that Mason County is open to responsible growth. If we do nothing, our population is projected to fall below 16,000 by 2040. The tax base will continue to narrow, and funding the essentials, roads, water systems, police, and fire will get harder every year. But if we embrace growth, responsibly and deliberately, we can change that trajectory. We can create stability for our residents, our government, and our future generations. This isn't about changing who we are. It's about ensuring we're still here thriving, not just surviving for generations to come. On behalf of the Maysville Mason County Industrial Development Authority, I respectfully ask for your support for this project. This is not simply about buildings or industry, it's about people. It's about giving our citizens the opportunity to work where they live. It's about strengthening our utilities, our schools, and our emergency services. It's about keeping Mason County competitive, relevant, and resilient in the decades ahead. We know that growth at this scale won't come without challenges. There will be growing pains in infrastructure and housing, traffic, and even in the way we adapt to change as a community. But those are the kind of challenges that come from progress. The kind of challenges communities want to have in order to build long-term prosperity. We will work through them together with communication and the same cooperative spirit that has always defined Mason County. As a 2008 graduate of Mason County High School, I dreamed of Maysville having an opportunity like this for long-term career jobs and opportunities. This project says one thing very clearly. Mason County's best days are not behind us. They're in front of us if we choose to build it. Thank you for your time.
Take 15 minutes. take your seats, please. We'll go ahead and get started. Elisa Lowe.
Yes, sir.
You've been sworn in.
I have been sworn in. I am not a Mason County resident. I live at 2000.
Okay.
Good evening. I appreciate the chance to address the planning and zoning team here in Mason County. I have been here before. My name is Elisa Owen, and I am the energy organizer for the Sierra Club here in the state of Kentucky. My understanding of what we were doing here tonight was to speak directly to the ordinance. So that is what I'm going to do. I thought that we were not cheerleading, but we were instead speaking to the ordinance. So that is my plan. Given that, I want to begin by making specific reference to the sections of the data center zoning amendment that I will address. I also want to tell you that because I'm an energy organizer, I'm going to focus on energy issues that I think are central to your all's work and your, shaping of your ordinance. I was here on last September the 20th to speak much more generally about data centers and about the kinds of questions that communities need to have the opportunity to ask the developers, not the developer's attorney, not the developer's industry representative, but the developer. The reason that you need to ask questions will become clear as I make my presentation. There is no substitute for community involvement in projects. None. So, here's the thing about this project. This project is making a bid to become your all's neighbors. And I hope it ends up being a good neighbor. But the way to ensure that it will be a good neighbor is to be able to understand things like ramp time in these data centers, right? If you're going to construct multiple buildings to hold multiple data centers in a place, then what you need to know is by when will this development be constructed, and are you bringing people, tenants that you already know about to this development, or are you renting to people who may or may not come? Because if you build out power infrastructure for these folks, timing is everything. And if you build out power infrastructure for these folks without knowing the timeline of when this development will be constructed, and not only when it will be constructed, but when the tenants will be occupying it, right? If you're building out 1.2, I've heard anything from 1.2 to 2.2 gigawatts of power. I'm not sure exactly what the final number is, but that is about 2/3 of EKPC's current capacity, as I understand it. So this is no ordinary development that you are inviting to be your neighbor. When I was here on September the 20th, my major concern about the project was that the people here in Mason County were being asked to trust their elected officials' judgment about the intentions and the trustworthiness of their new neighbor. That's still my major concern about the ordinance as it is written. It lists a lot of steps that will be taken to vet the potential data center customer that is on the way to project realization in this county. And it gives the responsibility of oversight planning to the zoning board, state agencies, or others that may or may not have the expertise to evaluate how things are proceeding. So this ordinance requires a couple of things that I want to speak to. They come on page 5, and they are the requirements that may be included in the data center's development plan. Here are the boxes that must be checked. You must have a utility plan that will come from EKPC, I'm assuming. Let me tell you a little something about EKPC's plan as I understand it. First of all, a lot of people have been up here and described Spurlock Power Plant as the preeminent power plant in the country. I think that's saying more than is deserved for Spurlock. What I understand is that without the upgrades that this data center is bringing to this county, Spurlock and Cooper would be closed by 2032. The power plant, as I understand it, was put into operation, the first unit, in 1977. There's a unit 4 that came online in 2009. The other thing you need to know about Spurlock is it burns coal. And coal is sometimes reliable if we're not talking about winter storms. But it is most certainly the most expensive energy going. And so if this data center is allowed to keep coal online, unless Spurlock and Cooper are specifically called to support that data center, and I'm not sure that a Fortune 20 or 10 or 100 or whatever it is, I'm not sure that a company of that status really wants to pay for the most expensive energy going. So one of the things that EKPC could have done to encourage this company to come would have been to diversify their energy offerings in order to bring down the price per megawatt hour of the power that they are offering to this very modern company that probably does not want to pay 20th century prices for its energy. EKPC could really help this community if it diversified its energy portfolio in order to lower not just the data center's cost of power, which is really important if they're going to be burning so much. what they could do is diversify their energy portfolio, which they have said that they are going to do. The other issue that I see is when, let's just say we accept Spurlock and the burning of coal, and the fact that if you get your energy from EKPC, which you are required to do because we don't have markets here, right? You can't choose your own energy supplier, which for us here in Kentucky means that we're stuck with the bad decisions that our utilities make to lock us into fossil fuels into this 21st century. So because we are stuck with those bad decisions, the least that we could ask the utility plan to do would be to give us electric energy that doesn't threaten to pollute more farmland and more water. But instead, they're giving us coal and gas, all fossil. And that pipeline and the gas plant that they're planning to put in down at Cooper, which is south of here, that's going to cost, as I calculated, at least $2.1 billion for the cost of the pipeline and the gas generator down at Cooper. So they're locking you into, unless they put all of that on the data center, you've got expensive energy until 2050. You can thank your utilities for that. I'm also concerned, so what I would ask you to do when you think about your utility plan is I would ask you to ask yourselves, do we want a modern grid here in Mason County? And do we want a grid that's actually going to attract the kind of industry that you want here? Not just the kind of people who say, oh my God, we have to get on the grid immediately. Our concern is being quickest to market, and we don't care what our power looks like. If you really want to attract that kind of industry, then you can make a utility plan in your ordinance that has some specifics in it. We'd like the data center to bring its own energy. We'd like the data center to have 50% renewable, which is completely reliable and doesn't risk what happened in Winter Storm Ian and Elliott, which were rolling blackouts in our state that almost became an entire blackout for the eastern seaboard because both coal and gas plants failed during the winter peak. So I'd ask that we build out that utility plan in a way that points you toward the future, the grid that will actually attract the manufacturing that you want here, as opposed to letting your vertically integrated utility lock you in to an aging grid with that uses last century fuels. The reason that other fuels are being chosen in markets like Texas's ERCOT is because they are cheaper. That's why they're being chosen. Your people, if they're going to take power from Spurlock and Cooper are going to have their utility bills go up and up and up because their fuel costs of both coal and gas are passed directly through to you as consumers. The PSC, in all its wisdom, even though there are other possible sources, have decided that the consumer gets all of the fuel costs. So if Mason County residents take any power from those coal plants that stay online and keep polluting your community, then their bills are going to go up. So I'd ask that you build out a utility plan with more specifics. What does your future look like here? What does your power look like here? Use this opportunity to work with the developer to give yourselves what you deserve, which is lowest cost power. Have the data center, have renewable power. Ask them to do that. You have that power. Same thing goes for the environmental impact assessment. You have in the ordinance that you want it to happen, but you don't have specifics about what you're looking for in that assessment, right? Once you do the assessment, so what? Right? There are impacts. What is the level at which you decide that those impacts are unacceptable? What do you hope the environmental impact assessment shows you? Right? Right now you have in there that yes, you have to do one, but then once you do it, what are you going to use it for? If I were you, I'd use it to make sure this developer brings to your county what you deserve. A community benefits agreement that makes sure that they leave this county better than they found it, not worse. You can do that. You have that power here. Finally, you want a community impact statement. Use that too. Don't just say you're going to do one. Look into, I'm going to give you a really well done plan. I want you to go look at it because it has a lot in it about community benefits agreements and how these counties that are dealing with data centers coming into their counties and using their resources, extracting resources from them, bringing few jobs. You do what your county judge said he wanted. You use this opportunity to tell the developer what you want in your community. What do you need? Affordable housing? Do you need a tech center? You can decide that. Here's what I'm going to recommend that you look at. It's Prince George's County in Maryland. They have they have a robust community benefits agreement. Now, obviously, it's impossible to negotiate a community benefits agreement with a developer who you don't know, who wants to be your neighbor, but won't introduce himself. So, the question that I would have for your officials is, when are they going to make a decision? When are we going to stop being a possibility. And only that. Once you know that, then you can negotiate a community benefits agreement that maximizes the local economic benefits. Prince George's County residents raised concerns about whether data centers would provide lasting jobs, workforce pipelines, and direct access to employment. Let me tell you something, friends. It's what they say about scams. If everything they say sounds too good to be true, it might be. So you can use this community benefits agreement to make sure you get what your counties need. What this group of counties need. Loudoun County, Virginia directs more than $100 million annually from data center taxes into schools and services. New Albany, Ohio benefits from corporate grants and nonprofit partnerships with Meta and Amazon. Frederick requires community benefit agreements to preserve farmland and fund local priorities. Data centers can play a role in strengthening education, recreation, public health in communities. But you've got to write your ordinance with a community benefit specific ask of this developer who won't introduce themselves to you yet. Write your ordinance so that you can have them reinvest in your community and not just take your resources.
You're at 20 minutes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'm just going to give them this and then I'll stop.
Final thoughts.
I will tell you, however, that you didn't stop everybody at 20 minutes. But I'm happy to finish. Don't worry.
You're actually at 21 and a half minutes. I've given you extra time as well, man. But continue. Final thoughts, please.
Final thoughts are right now. I'm going to give them this link. www.pgplanning.org. Look it up. It's their planning document. Good luck.
Name Bolton.
I'm not a resident of Mason County, however, I represent an organization that has members. First, I want to start. My name is Lane Bolton. I'm with the Kentucky Conservation Committee. But I want to first thank you all for coming out. And you have a lovely, wonderful community, and you have an excellent community that knows how to participate. I'm sorry that you've had to stay this long just to be represented. My family grew up across the river. You have wonderful assets that aren't just industrial like your river, and you have a lot of history, and I really respect that. So, Oh, you're looking there? Okay. I was a bit. Almost did your slide. Didn't want to waste your time on that. So I am going to speak to the ordinance, but I'm just going to say, Kentucky Conservation Committee, we are the longest running state-based conservation nonprofit in Kentucky. We're providing a trusted voice at the Capitol. So we spend a lot of time in Frankfurt, and we work with state government a lot. So my focus is going to be mostly on that. So, you know a lot of this stuff already, the background, the growing concerns over data centers. I don't need to explain that to you. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, I waited too long. But, you know some of the impacts here, so I'm going to skip through. The growing calls in a lot of communities are being raised now for moratoriums on these developments. Just across the river in Ohio, this just came out this week, article in the Ohio Capital Journal, monitoring analytics, independent PJM market monitor, launched the Federal Regulatory Commission to clarify that PJM can and should halt data center interconnection if it does not have adequate power. They're getting overwhelmed with these now. Ohio's had more than 200 data centers already. So when you do your planning, you need to think about this. You're setting the stage for one, but you could have a lot more in a very short period of time. And you need to think about that when you're dealing with your ordinance. Next slide. Environmental groups are chiming in significantly. More than 200 environmental groups have demanded a national moratorium on new data centers in the U.S. Concerns around escalating electricity bills, worsening the climate crisis, you know all this already. Groups have urged members of Congress to halt the proliferation of energy-hungry data centers. So the question is, are state and federal laws providing enough adequate protection? Next. No, not enough. So this is something you need to think about. You're not being protected enough. And so you have to make sure your ordinance is super protected. Next slide. So I'm going to just mention a little bit about how did we get here in the first place. Do you think the regulations are protected enough? Do you think your lawmakers are looking out for you? No. Not as much as they should, right? Here's a list of bills from 2019 to 2025 that were pro-data center or pro-blockchain technology or pro-crypto mining. Okay? A lot of tax breaks, a lot of exemptions on use of energy, a lot of tax breaks on capital investments, and I hope these are written into the record. Big projects started coming in the last legislative session. HB8 gave sales tax breaks on data center equipment. The data center owner or operator makes a capital investment of at least $450 million, or a project organizer invests at least $150 million. In 2025, they expanded the sales and use tax exemptions for qualified data centers in Kentucky. So they're getting tax breaks that are bringing these in to the state. You know this. But they're also bringing in pollution. So the next slide. Back up. Sorry. In 2025, House Bill 346, among its provisions, defined the use of emergency stationary internal combustion engines. Okay, as you know, a lot of you know already, these are generators that go on top of the data centers, right? They have no time limit on use of emergency situations. They can operate a maximum of 50 hours per calendar year for non-emergency situations. What's the definition of an emergency situation, right? They want to keep the power going on 24/7. These generators are there to allow that to happen. As soon as this bill passed, your projects started popping up, okay? And these are not air pollution friendly, right? So, also in 2025, House Bill 137 constrained the ability for citizens to do citizen-based evidence collection for monitoring air quality. So, more pollution, more generators, less opportunity for citizens to monitor it. Okay, next slide. Then at the federal level, we've had pro-data center presidential actions and executive orders, removing barriers to American leadership in artificial intelligence, passed executive action in January 2025. One called Accelerating Federal Permitting of Data Center Infrastructure, executive order, July 2025. The executive branch is expected to sign a new executive order overriding state approvals and oversight on artificial intelligence regulations. So, next slide. So, lack of state and federal actions calls for strong local actions. This is where you come in. So, we've looked at the suggestions for the ordinance. We want to make sure that you do an environmental impact assessment with specifics, like Elisa brought up, detailed. You need to do an environmental justice impact assessment. These kind of projects tend to cluster in communities that don't have as much power for its citizens, low income, communities of color, and we don't want to see that happen. We want to make sure that if you do a proper environmental justice impact assessment, that you can address the situation, that you can mandate rules to make sure that some communities are not impacted far more than others. And then, as Elisa mentioned, the community benefits agreements. Very important. Next slide. Water issues. Oh, back on. Yeah. That's all right. Go ahead. I'll go with that. You got it next one. Water issues. Okay, so impact on water resources. So I'm glad to hear them say that this will be a closed loop system, it'll be water efficient. We want to see that there are technologies to make these things have less impact. Appreciate that. But this is being located by the river. We heard a lot about investments in infrastructure upgrades for water. Obviously, there's going to be water impacts, right? So, according to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute this year, large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons per day, equivalent to the water use of a town populated by 10,000 to 50,000 people. Now, is that going to be the case with this one? Well, then you need to check and make sure that what they're saying is correct. Data center water usage closely parallels energy usage and carbon emissions. For fewer than 1/3 of data center operators track their water consumption. You need to make sure that the tracking of the water consumption happens. Okay? Approximately 80% of the water, typically fresh water, withdrawn by data centers evaporates, with remaining water discharged into municipal wastewater facilities. The large volume of wastewater in data centers may overwhelm existing local facilities, which were not designed to handle such a high volume. So again, right now, you're hearing that these are going to be very water friendly. You need to make sure that that's the case. Okay. So, impact on water resources. Next slide. Yeah. Back up one. Sorry. Data centers also use a variety of chemicals. This hasn't been talked about much. In their cooling system that contaminates water as it works through the data center cooling system. These include refrigerants, such as PFAS chemicals, which are also known as forever chemicals, okay, as well as corrosion inhibitors. So in multiple legislative sessions, and we focus on legislative issues, in multiple legislative sessions as recently as 2025, lawmakers failed to even hear legislation to set drinking water limits and monitor discharges for PFAS forever chemicals. We won't even hear it. In 2025, lawmakers passed Senate Bill 89, a bad water bill limiting the definition of water or waters of the Commonwealth to waters of the U.S., in other words, to defer to the federal standards. That just passed. Okay, you think federal standards are okay, better than your own standards? Well, guess what? The federal standards are expected to weaken via what is known as the Permit Act. That is out there right now, H.R. 3898, federal legislation. Vote is expected later this week. So, you defer your water quality to the federal standard, and the federal standard is probably going to get weakened. So, next. Okay. Let's talk about air quality issues for a second. Compounding the existing pollution problems you already have. Okay, next. Spurlock is obviously a source of pollution. Already has a history of Clean Air Act violations. The addition of multiple data center diesel backup generators would emit significant amounts of PM 2.5 and NOx, especially during testing and outages, impacting local air quality. These are significant pollutants impacting respiratory and cardiovascular issues. We recommend strengthening the local requirements on the use of diesel backup generators. When this bill passed this last session, I don't think anyone anticipated just how many generators we're talking about. We're talking about hundreds. Even though they don't run long, it doesn't matter, you get multiple. Okay. And then, next slide, we'll talk again about the community impacts. Really important for you to have detailed, strong community benefits agreements. You need that environmental justice assessment. And then, as Elisa said, you need to act on it. So, next slide. Community benefit agreements are legally binding contracts. Okay? So you need to get all the details in there. You need to create your community's vision and goals. You need to consider the impact the development will have in your community. You need to identify any new benefit needs that will ensure your community is supported and any harm is mitigated or removed. You can look up information on community benefit agreements in many places, so I urge you to do that. Next, then also the environmental justice impact assessment. That's a specialized analysis within the standard of the environmental impact assessment process focused on identifying if the proposed project disproportionately harms low-income, minority, and other populations. So we'd like you to make sure to identify those impacts, assess cumulative impacts, okay? You drive equitable outcomes for your community. So we urge you to make sure and do all this. You're welcome to contact us with any questions about any of these. We're here and we'll continue to monitor what's happening at the state level and the cabinet to ensure that we're getting better laws to protect you. But what I want to urge here is that your local ordinances are what's going to drive this. We can't assume that the state or the Fed is going to be watching out for you. So I just want to say again, you've got a lovely community. You have wonderful assets. I grew up not far from the river here, and I know you have for outdoor recreation and other assets that would truly be benefits to your community. You can have data centers in that mix, but you have to be vigilant about ensuring that this industry that is overwhelming states like Ohio and short notice are really taking care of you, and we're not just tossing things away for the sake of winning a race. I would hate to see this community lose the charm and the farms and the outdoor recreation opportunities that you have. You have great assets that don't need to go just to data centers. So with that, I think.
Thank you. Excuse me. Janet Garrison.
My name is Janet Garrison. I am a Mason County resident. And I have been sworn in. All right. Okay. So, many of you know me. I taught here at the college for over 34 years. So I have one foot in farmland and one foot in technology. This was hard for me. I should be cheering this on. But, because I do have a background in technology, I've read all the horror stories about some of these speculative data centers moving in and taking advantage. So that's why I am working with We Are Mason County, and I am a member of Friends of Minerva, so we can make sure that the community is heard and protected. We could welcome this, but we have to be protected, okay? I like what I have heard so far, all right? I really wish we'd had this pep rally information session a couple months ago. We have several concerns that have been addressed thus far, but not all. So some of my slides won't be as relevant, but the teacher in me has to put those details out there. I like what Owen had to say about, being the best of the best. That's what I want for this community. So once again, my background, you can see I was farm and teaching, protecting the environment, supporting a sustainable future, and no fear-mongering. But we're going to address, in next slide, we're going to address the ugly elephant in the room. All right? EKPC said they are proactive in pursuing opportunities. Well, this blindsided us. They secretly recruited a 2.2 gigawatt data center customer. And the scary part of that is they also have the power to use eminent domain to force people to sell. So, I don't know if you consider that a conflict of interest. Is that ethical? Aren't they a nonprofit member-owned co-op? We own them? Is this a betrayal or abuse of the people they serve? I mean, we trusted EKPC. And now we're suspicious, because this is very scary, especially for those people who have been approached and possibly bullied to sell their land. And when two widows may be forced to sell their land, we need to come back and think about this. What kind of community are we? That really concerns me. Next, she's already there. Now, you mentioned earlier that the PJM grid, well, EKPC's 2024 data, the 2025 data is not out yet. Their total capacity, 3,438 megawatts. All right? The peak demand was 37,054 megawatts, which is larger than 3438. So as you can see in the chart, during the winter, we're using more than we can produce. So we have to buy from the PJM, apparently. I haven't had this answered, so maybe somebody from EKP can sit down with me sometime this week and we can go through it. But in the summer, we have a surplus, so we're able to sell. And this is all public available information. Okay. Next slide. The data center tariff rate is a step in the right direction. I love that. But relying on the PJM to go to purchase the extra power is maybe not such a good idea, because FERC in June 2025 said that PJM was inadequate to meet current and future demands for large data center loads. So if data centers are being built throughout several states and everybody thinks they're going to get their the extra power they need from the PJM, everybody's going after the same resource. So, we're not going to get a piece of the pie. EKPC proposes $2 million in investment to add 1.2 gigawatts. So I was glad to hear Nick say that the data center is going to pay for that, because that worried me. Right, next slide. They're going to build 1.2 gigawatts from the research. Once again, I welcome EKPC to contact me and let's sit down and I can get better educated. But this list, I'm not going to read through it, but only 2 of them that are not highlighted are Cooper and Spurlock, to be retrofitted to be co-fired, so they can burn gas and coal. All right? We're doing that to extend the life of those generating plants. That's fine. But the rest of this all applies to meeting the needs of the data center customer, the 2.2 gigawatt customer. And that's what I was worried about. Who was going to pay for the extra generation project? So these are not costs associated with getting power to their site. This is to generate the power in the first place. All right? Now, all I want you to look at is the number at the bottom, lower right. Based on a document that was released in May of 2025, the Transmission Expansion Advisory Committee, which is a PJM planning committee, EKPC filed with them their plans to be able to get up to 2.2 gigawatts by 2031. All right? Now, all of these have to do with the local infrastructure to get the power to the data center. The data center pays for this. All right, next slide. But the $2 billion, that was where my question was. If there's $2 billion to generate the extra capacity and $566 million to get the power to the site, all right, I will be thrilled to hear that data centers paying for both. Because my concern was we would be paying for that for the next 4 years. Ratepayers. So EKPC requires a bond for data centers to recover all infrastructure costs specific to their operation if they abandon the project. That makes sense. I'm saying, do you have another bond that covers the $2 billion generation investment so the ratepayers don't have to pay? So Tanner, Jeff, Nick, everybody said no, we wouldn't be paying for that. Everybody heard that here tonight. I love that. All right, now let's get back to the zoning amendment discussion. Closed loop, dry cooled, sounds great. That means no pipeline needs to be built from the river up to wherever the data center site is. That's great. We have, thus far, other than tonight, had received no concrete information from the developer regarding how much water they will use daily, and that they would use only river water for cooling if they were a massive water consumer. All right? But our thoughts are we still want to protect our aquifer from being contaminated in any way. So if you're going to have any kind of holding ponds, reservoirs, they need to be properly lined. Because any chemicals that you may use in your water, we don't want that in our aquifer. Now, evaporative cooling causes elements in water to become more highly concentrated, such as nitrates, PFAs, etc. So there's a second side to the Prineville, Oregon story. This past couple of weeks, a Rolling Stone magazine released an article about Prineville, and now they are experiencing elevated rates of cancer in young people and miscarriages. And they were wondering why. It is because, now hopefully we'll never do this here, but this is a concern we need to watch because we are farming, we use ammonium nitrate, and so forth. In Prineville, Oregon, they also had the large corporate farms that were trying to get additional desert-like land to make it more fertile to raise your McDonald's potatoes for the french fries and onions. And what happened over the course of several years is their aquifer got contaminated with excess nitrates. The data centers brought the water in, the evaporated cooling, then concentrated the nitrates. The wastewater went to a certain area where it was then pumped back out over the land for the farmers. So that's a lesson to be learned right there. The discharged water, which is considered industrial waste, must be properly treated before returned to local reservoir streams with the Ohio River. We do want this developer to submit water usage reports annually. If they're dry cooled, it should be no problem. And since they are going to be in the Western Mason Water District, which by the way has some of the most modern infrastructure in the county, I'm very proud. Western Mason Water District, should we have a bond for the water district in case something falls through after they've torn up water lines so we can put them back? Because we're proud of Western Mason Water District. Next slide. All right. Now, some of you may say, well, I don't really care about this. I just want the jobs and I want the tax revenue because I don't live out there where this thing might go. Well, the wind can carry things. It can carry noise and air pollution. I live over 3 miles away from the railroad tracks, but if the wind's just right, it sounds like that train whistle blowing right outside my door. So the prevailing winds will carry noise and pollution. So everybody needs to care about this. Right, next slide. Noise. Same thing here is true. Low frequency vibrational noise, sometimes called tonal noise. The best way for me to describe it is if a kid goes down the road with a big boom speaker, big subwoofer in the trunk of their car. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, you might not hear me, but oh, God, I feel something. You know, it's vibrational. All right, that's what you're feeling. You may not hear it. I don't notice my refrigerator running all the time. There's a noise with it. But this type of noise, low frequency vibrational noise, causes a lot of illness. Because stress causes cortisol levels, you can no longer get the rest you need, you get inflammation, inflammation leads to heart attack, stroke, etc. So this is nothing to laugh about. And it can carry up to 3 miles. So you see where the circles are? Oh, you need to go back. And the little red stars are the school system, the blue stars are our medical and extended care and nursing facilities. And the poor little yellow star in the middle is Highland Heights. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Why noise matters? Direct data centers, maybe not this customer, but some of the unscrupulous ones, often emerge rapidly in less regulated or residential areas. They result in noise complaints, reduced quality of life for people, animals, and insects, anything living. Noise control measures for high and low frequencies are needed along with revisions to local noise ordinances. We need to be able to protect the community and no pay to play. No, just let's assess a fine and slap them on the wrist, because they'll just keep doing it. Data centers produce several types of frequencies that are not acoustic, meaning you can't hear it, you feel it, and cannot be measured in decibels. Our current amendment only addressed the decibels. Sufficient setbacks are required so that those levels drop before they reach a person's front door. The site concern. In the amendment, it says data centers shall be allowed only in I-3 rural industrial zones. The definition for that in Kentucky is manufacturing and heavy commercial operations such as factories, warehouses, quarries, trucking companies, etc. These should be typically located away from residential areas to minimize adverse effects on living conditions. Local zoning ordinances must include specific requirements for noise, traffic, and pollution management. Next slide, please. We've been told once again that this needs to go to an I-3. We already have existing I-3 sites. Okay, I've got them listed on here, A, B, C, and D. Well, A, obviously, is the river port. There is no space down there to put a data center. B is Carmoose, once again. No space unless you want to be really innovative and put the baby underground and protect it from electromagnetic pulses. C, EKPC, if you've driven out by there, if you go down South Ripley Road, they own a lot of land. A lot of it's ridge tops. 267 acres are ridge tops. Why not build it there? Put it right close to EKPC. And in Dover, the west of Dover, there's 624 acres. But we're saying we want to take this red square and convert it to I-3. Well, we've already got I-3. Next slide. Okay, on this slide it's showing the existing industrial parks. You can put one in an existing industrial park if it's multi-story. This is what they do in other parts of the world. They put it in an industrial park. And especially where land is scarce, if you go out over to Japan, Taiwan, and so forth, they've got a multiple stories tall. We can do that. We can do that. We don't have to take all the farmland. Maysville is getting many benefits. We've heard of the benefits that Maysville is getting. What are the county people getting? The people who are going to live right next to this. I haven't heard anything yet, other than maybe our property taxes will go down. Next slide. So the people concerns. The green outline here, and once again, I came up with this map. I own this. I came up with this map by talking to local people to find out, are you in or out of this project? Have you been contacted? So this is like the area of interest. And this is 8,025 acres. 4,525 north of the AA highway, 3,500 acres south of the AA highway. This area involves, in Highland Heights alone, 115 families. And on Valley Pike, Big Pond, Tuckahoe, Minerva, it's 500 plus families. That's north of the AA. I didn't even count south of the AA. Next slide, please. I am concerned about the very low direct jobs for the 2,500 acres. We've been told 50, 100, 400, and then earlier I heard 150 to 200. There are 10,000 employees at Toyota on 1,300 acres. So, I mean, you know, as just waiting this is not the best deal maybe we could get, but anyway. The ratepayers hopefully are not on the hook now for the $2 billion investment. We don't know what's going on with this 8,000 acres. Is there a land grabbing process so they can grab the land and then later add more data centers or something else? It's scary. Farmland and natural habitats will be lost forever. Over 615 families will be impacted. Those who sell must relocate. And by the way, I'm not against data centers and I'm not against people selling their land for however they want. Okay? We do not fault the people who sold their land. They got a great deal. Okay? Sometimes they were kind of put between a rock and a hard place, but, you know, that was up to them. But the remaining local people will have to endure 10 plus years of construction, I wish it was conservation. Construction, chaos, and hazards, air, water, noise pollution, water quality, pressure issues, possible electric grid issues as well. All right, next slide. But, I'm going to sound doom and gloom is over. There is still hope. On the 9th of September, Judge Executive Owen McNeil made this statement. So I would have no issue with having zoning regulations that are some of the most stringent in the United States. I love that, Owen. I do. And I want us to honor that. Okay? So we can live with this comfortably. Next slide. So, also quoting a friend of mine, our history shows a better way. Mason County's past was built on progress. Our future depends on our ability to exploit current opportunities. Generations before us welcomed innovation. So we can exploit this opportunity and welcome innovation if we work as a team and all players proceed in a do no harm manner. So, with proper regulations, we can make Mason County the best of the best, the first-in-class, good neighbor data center model for the world. All right? Community involvement is key. Next slide. All right, so we've got to work as a team. Everybody's ideas matter. We need to build back trust. The NDAs have destroyed our trust in city and county officials. That's right. Developer needs to communicate with concerned citizens and not just county officials. And more importantly, this question was asked of me several times. Janet, have you visited a data center? And at the time I said no. So I had to go visit one. The Planning Commission needs to visit a community with a data center for this specific developer and talk to local residents so you can get the feedback. Next slide. We need to preserve farmland and use existing industrial parks in I-3 zones if at all possible. Located closer to EKP and the river. put it in existing industrial parks. Next slide, setbacks. The setbacks in the proposal are inadequate based on the sound. We propose in sensitive areas like out there in farms and homes, 1,500 to 2,000 feet for the setback for a hyperscale data center. Next slide. Structure height. I mentioned, it'd be great to build them taller, but that comes with problems too. Taller buildings create more aggregate noise. But you can go on to the next slide because I want to fly through these. 75 feet is what you have listed. That's fine in an industrial park, but we don't want these huge structures that have a reflexive echo out in the country. So we're saying maximum height less or equal 30 feet. That's negotiable. Lighting. Lighting slide. Okay, so lighting, we don't want the light to trespass onto other people's property. So 0 uplight, 0 backlight and glare, and next slide please. This is Microsoft's data center lighting best practices. I like it. This is what we need to request. You don't want light shining in your bedroom when you're trying to sleep. Okay, next slide. All right, now here are the noise decibels. We recommend you reduce all these by 10. That would be great. Out in the country, the noise is typical 40 to 45 decibels. If you build this thing with this in mind, with all the noise mitigation, they can do this. They can make it quiet. Next slide, please. Proactive noise mitigation. In the design, you need to have a sound study, so we need to know what the baseline is, what's the goal. We require them to conduct annual sound studies to stay within the limits. Next slide.
Ms. Garrison, final thoughts. We're 21 and a half minutes.
All right, backup generator, tier 4. Decommissioning plan is completely missing. The decommissioning plan, we need one. And we need a moratorium, so we have more time, so we can send our board members to visit a site, so we can bring the community, get more community involvement. And go ahead and take me to the very last slide. One more. Please don't rush this. It's not too late to do the right thing. Make Mason County the best of the best, first in class, good neighbor data center model, and I'll be your biggest cheerleader. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
I have been sworn in, and I'm not from Mason County. I am Hank Grady. We get on the first slide for a couple minutes. I'm a lawyer from Maysville, Kentucky, and I've been retained by WeAreMasonCounty. I was retained when they learned about this project, but they were frustrated because they were not being able to find out who it was and what was going to happen. WeAreMasonCounty was formed in response to this mystery, to try to get to the bottom of it, and frankly to try to protect this community from an unknown threat. Max Warren is the president and executive director. He has spoken to the planning commission closely to try to urge the planning commission to amend the comprehensive plan, to begin the comprehensive plan process of recognizing the need for the plan to address data centers. As we sit here, the comprehensive plan still does not address data centers. Also, as has been noted, the planning commission, the zoning ordinance, does not address data centers. I was in the fiscal court meeting on September 9th with a letter urging the fiscal court to begin the job of instructing the planning commission to address data centers. But before I could speak, the fiscal court adopted a resolution to instruct the planning commission to begin the process of addressing data centers. And so I applauded that decision to the fiscal court when it happened. I subsequently sent John Estel the Oldham County proposed data ordinance that is in draft. I have included portions of that in a notebook that I've given you, and I would urge the members of the fiscal court, you'll turn to the end of my letter, you'll see pages from the Oldham County proposed zoning ordinance where they have highlight on page 3, they have 1,000-foot setbacks for all adjoining properties that are residential. So this is an example of a Kentucky county where the planning commission has decided that 250 is not adequate, that in that county it needs to be 1,000 feet setback from residential. That has not been enacted on by the fiscal court. It is pending for the fiscal court. I've also I attended a meeting last week with Andy Shale, Kimberly Horn, and I've included his memo because I think I want to call attention to you to a part of that memo. If you'll look on the second page of his memo, he gives you ordinances from 3 other communities, New Albany, Hilliard, and Dublin. And if you look at what he said in his memo, data centers are a conditional use in the ID1, ID2, and ID4 zoning ordinances. And he also mentioned the New Albany, that's been discussed by other people earlier tonight, and you'll see below that a page from the Albany zoning ordinance. This is the link he gave you in his memo, and this shows that in New Albany, general office activities in data centers are a conditional use in the L1 district. Now, I'm mentioning this conditional use because this is a public hearing on a zoning ordinance. It is not necessarily a pep rally for data centers, and tonight has been pretty much a discussion about are data centers good or bad. My topic is to talk about the zoning ordinance and how I think it can be improved, what's in it that I think is worthy of applause, but also what is seriously missing. So I want to turn to what I believe is the most serious flaw. Next slide. In my opinion, the most serious problem with this proposed zoning ordinance text is that it does not adequately protect the citizens' right to participate in the data center site selection process. The ordinance in front of you is text that would allow a data center applicant to acquire land currently zoned I3, prepare a development plan that the public would never get to review and comment on because there is no right to a public hearing in the zoning ordinance section, development plan requirements, and Kentucky law allows development plans to be approved by a planning commission staff in certain circumstances without even having the planning commission approval or without having a public hearing. And even when the planning commission has to approve a development plan, there is no requirement in state law that the planning commission hold a public hearing, consider public comments on a development plan. So the ordinance that you have in front of you creates the possibility of a data center being located in an existing I3 zone, excluding the public from ever having a say, excluding the fiscal court from having a say, and simply approving a development plan that the public has no right to be heard on. That is woefully inadequate, and I'm going to suggest ways to try to fix that. The second, next slide. The second most serious problem with this proposed text is that it contains nothing that protects Mason County prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance, which is clearly contrary to the text found throughout the 2016 comprehensive plan and the 2025 Mason County comprehensive plan update. without any language that protects prime and important Mason County farmland, this proposed text validates the fears of many in this community that there is a plan to take 8,000 acres of productive farmland zoned for agriculture out of agricultural production, again in violation of the community's comprehensive plans. Next slide. My clients, as you heard from Janet, have calculated that from the very limited information they've been able to obtain, that this plan, if it impacts 8,000 acres of farmland, would threaten 10% of the Mason County productive farmland. Now, I've attached to the memo that I've given you, you'll look below the Kimberly Horn and the New Albany zone change. You'll see the next page is several pages of zoning ordinance from Frederick, Maryland. Right, if you go to the end of my letter, so page 11 of my letter, right there, the 2 pages past that are Oldham County setbacks. Next 3 pages are the Kinley Horn memo from Andy Shaw, which you got last week, which has the links to the New Albany, Hilliard, and Dublin. And below that, the page with a lot of fine print, and just go to the next slide, you may. Go back. For the planning commission members, you should be looking at a page called Critical Digital Infrastructure Overlay Zone, CDIOZ. And you'll see I've highlighted section 4, the critical digit overlay zone as approved by the county council shall include less than 1% of the total land area of the county. I'm giving you that as an example of a planning commission and local government that put a limit on how much area in the county can become developed for data centers, and they limited it to 1%. And yet, right now, this community is facing a proposal that might take as much as 8,000 acres, and others have done the math. I may be wrong on the math. That's been determined to be perhaps as much as 10% of your farmland. Based upon the foregoing points, we, Mason County, recommend the following addition to the Mason County Data Center text amendment. And this is language that has come from the Kentucky Resources Council. Recently, Tom Fitzgerald spent the past couple of weeks working on this. Many of you know Tom Fitzgerald is one of Kentucky's foremost environmental lawyers, and he has prepared a model data center ordinance. He has released it. I have this afternoon emailed it to your staff, so it's in your office. And if you go to the next slide. Next slide. This is the Frederick, Maryland slide I referred to. Go to the next slide. This is the 1 acre that the planning commission could read, but you couldn't until this slide. Next slide. This is also in Frederick, Maryland. It was submitted. This is their 500-foot setback. Next slide. All right, now we're looking at language that Mr. Fitzgerald has recommended, and I'm recommending this as a specific addition to your zoning ordinance. General requirements related to location of data centers. No data centers shall be located. Next slide. On lands with slopes within a 100-year floodplain unless flood impacts are mitigated, in wetlands, and number 4, on prime farmland or farmland of state importance. This is a critical piece missing from your ordinance, and I would urge you to add this, and I suggest to you that your comprehensive plan, which calls regularly for protect farmland in this county, requires this kind of language in this ordinance. So I urge that you include this text or some variation of it in the finished product. I want to talk about setbacks. We asked the planning commission to strengthen setback requirement. We, again, I attached the Oldham County zoning text report. The planning commission has looked at that as a 1,000 foot setback, at least from the planning commission. I've mentioned the Republic, Maryland, with a 500 foot setback. Based upon these recommendations, I want to go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, back up, setback. You already did. The data center, these buildings should have the following setbacks. Next slide. At least 500 feet from the outer perimeter property lines of the data center, regardless of zoning classification of the adjacent property. These setbacks shall not apply to property lines in the interior. And number 2, at least 1,500 feet from sensitive use or the boundary beneath residential, commercial, or agricultural business. So we are recommending 500 feet everywhere, and then residential, and in sensitive areas, 1,500 feet. There are a number of positive sections in the proposed text, and I want to make sure. Next slide. I want to make sure that I praise those features. Some of the previous speakers have mentioned it. There is a section on buffering that has language that I like, but there's language that says any data center that adjoins a residence, school, or place of worship. I would suggest to you, as you see in paragraph 12 in my letter to you, no data center should adjoin a residence, a school, or a place of worship without setbacks in between the data center and that use. You have a noise section and a noise study. Those are all good, but I would urge that you have a more protective noise requirement. Let's go to the next slide. This again comes from the Kentucky Resources Council recommended language. All data centers shall meet the following minimum standards. Noise from operations, including primary and accessory structures and uses, energy systems shall not exceed 40 dBA or 60 dBc at 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. and shall not exceed 45 dBA or 65 dBc at any other time at any external perimeter of the property line. You'll see some footnotes at the bottom of page 5, as if you're on the planning commission looking at my notebook, and this provides more explanation for setting these, suggesting these noise limits as opposed to what we believe are somewhat too relaxed noise limits in your ordinance. Next slide. This is, Janice showed you this, so I'm borrowing this from her. Next slide. I do want to praise a feature in the proposed text that calls for not only the utility study that's been discussed previously, but also the environmental impact assessment. I do think the question was asked. It requires an environmental impact assessment. What happens? What impact does the environmental assessment have? That is something that I think that you should think through and strengthen. What are the consequences if the environmental impact assessment reveals that there are problems that this facility is going to cause at this location? The specific ask that I made, that I point to in paragraph 17, is to make sure that your environmental impact assessment recognizes that prime farmland is an environmental impact. And if the proposal is taking prime farmland that is currently in production out of production, that is an environmental negative. And so the question becomes, are there alternatives? And if there are alternatives of locating in an existing industrial tract as opposed to taking agricultural land in production out of production, then perhaps the environmental impact statement should tell the developer this is not a good site. And your environmental impact statement text should give you the ability to say the environmental impacts here form. Come back with a site that is more protective of our farmland and our other natural resources and environmental special assets. Next slide. The community impact analysis is, again, a very positive part of your proposal. So like other speakers, I want to compliment that along with the environmental impact statement, but it is only a piece of the pie. The question is, what do you do with community impact analysis without a community impact, a community benefit agreement? That is, community impact analysis should lead to the formation of a binding agreement between the developer and the community representatives, not just the county judge executive, and not just the planning commission. In the communities that were identified as put these in place, they have community representatives selected from the community who want to be involved in this process and may have a dog in the fight. They are also part of this agreement. And if this developer is a state-of-the-art developer, first-in-class developer, then we'll ask them to live up to that. That is, enter into an agreement with the community that all the promises are heard, that we will ask, wouldn't it be wonderful if this would happen? When we were told it was going to, I'm saying let's put it in writing and make it enforceable in a community benefit agreement. Mentioned in the next slide. New Albany, that's Franklin County, has received national attention for extending the concept of community impact analysis to a more binding community benefit agreement. You should add this feature to this text. Next slide. Again, New Albany was mentioned last week, and I'm turning to it because there are good pieces in the New Albany proposal. But the feature I want to call to now is that New Albany and Dublin, two facilities that were referred to last week, as I indicated earlier, both have zoning districts for data centers must obtain a conditional use permit. I refer to the Andy Shaw memo that is in the planning commissioner's package. It was given to me last week. The advantages of conditional use permits, you all know this, is that it ensures there will be a public hearing. It results in conditions that are enforceable, and it continues into the future. Is the conditional use permit the best we can do? Is that a good finished product? The answer is no. The Urban Land Institute has published 2024 local guidelines on data centers, and I have emailed that document to the planning commission staff earlier today, so that the complete document is there for your reference. And I have enclosed one page of it. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, the audience won't get to see this. But if you're in the notebook, you can find the page that says regulated data centers. Fourth from the last. This is a think tank document on how to regulate data centers. And they make 4 specific suggestions. Option 1, create an overlay district. Option 2, create a planned innovative research and technology district. Option 3, note preferred data center locations in the comprehensive plan and invite owner or hyperscaler industry and zoning applications. And 4, implement a specific data center zoning district defined by the ordinance. Now, our recommendation to you is that option 1, an overlay districts, or option 4, a specific industrial district data center,
be added to your text. And you have a text that is designed for data centers. And that is a piece that I believe is missing from the ordinance in front of you, and what I believe you need to add to make this address the issues that I believe it currently fails to address. So, looking at the slide in front of you on the screen, again, this is language coming from the KRC, it's language that I agree with. Permitted uses. A data center shall only be permitted in the heavy industry zoning district, I-2, or the rural industrial zoning district, I-3, as a conditional use upon 1, application for a map amendment to reclassify the property on which the data center is located as industrial data center, that is a zone change, and issuance by the planning commission of a conditional use permit in conjunction with the zoning map amendment. I put in front of you KRS 10203. This is a statute that identifies what is supposed to be in zoning ordinances, what's allowed to be in zoning ordinances, and I'm not sure if you've heard this before, but section 2035 allows planning commission this reports to add to the text authority for the planning commission to decide conditional use permits when they propose to need a conditional use permit.
Mr. Grandy, you're at 23 minutes. Final thoughts, please. You're at 23 minutes. Final thoughts, please.
May I have one more minute?
It's up to the planning commission.
I've also sent you the Prince George County qualified data centers. This is a legal resource document, and you'll see the final 3 pages of that in my memo. These are studies of other counties. My recommendation is if you look at Frederick County, Maryland, it's most like your situation, where they are trying to protect farmland and allow data centers to come in with public participation and with all the benefits possible going to the county. I want to close with how I began. I quoted in my letter to you from your comprehensive plan: develop policies and programs to protect and retain land that is considered valuable or that has soils of high statewide importance. Selective options include ag districts and conservation easements. That is in your plan. I would urge you to adopt a zoning ordinance that implements that part of the current comprehensive plan and save spaces that is farmland. Thank you.
Michael Hudson.
Michael, I'll see you Maysville, and I have been sworn in.
Sir, down there at the...
Right here, please. Like everybody else.
Those are the groups. The individuals go down there.
I'm right here, thank you. $1 billion. It took one word. That's all it took for our officials. And they had a revenue gas. They were going to roll over and play possum. The company has got your marching orders and your cue cards. NDA, no discernible accountability. Once signed, the officials essentially represented the company.
That's right.
The officials were told to shelve their curiosity and their critical thinking. Pay someone else who could legally play possum. 400 badge in drops. As soon as I heard badge in, it's like, count on about 50, even though we hear this whole range. Most will be in Oregon, Washington, Texas, California, and India. Maybe once a year, they'll come in for a meeting and swipe their badge in. You get 400 badge in. To see how important this project is, I think all of our officials should be excited and honored to consider this proposal. All of the associated property should be given values of December 31st, 2020. Now, for any officials, their family, and their business associates, if that's directly impacted
or adjacent to this, they are allowed to give twice that 2020 value. Anything above that goes into a bond to help protect the community. If they happen to have bought the property after December 31st of 2020, they get half of what they paid for it because it's deceased. I really enjoyed the presentations by all the officials because it really helped massage a lot of my concerns. About 6 months too late, and the secrecy turned into deceit, in my opinion. These are my opinions. Now, 90% of what our officials said is in the cloud. If only half of that comes to fruition, I would be excited. Now, if our officials want to take a look at the two previous, Janet and Hank, I think, we take a serious look at those. That addresses almost everything that really should be addressed. Now, our representatives, we expect them to be legal, moral, and ethical. Well, apparently the new gold standard is if it's not illegal, forget the moral and ethical. Get legal, just use it illegal. In 1989, Harry Cardinal, former mayor, said she had a problem with courthouse people. Once they get in a courthouse, they can be like they're there to stay.
3 minutes, Mr. Hussey. Final thoughts, please.
Dennis Redmond, talking of Harry Cardinal's honor and ethics, he further said, isn't that refreshing? Well, the secrecy has not been refreshing. I would love the DAP Center. Refresh us, please. Be honest. Thank you.
Field Marshal?
Bill Marshall, I have been sworn, I live in the county. My name is Bill Marshall, and I live at 683 Maysville, Kentucky. I want to talk about Mason County's future and how we write rules to help shape it. Until recently, Mason County is a place that built, adapted, and worked hard for our future. So since the 1990s, our population, income, and employment have all declined while the cost of supporting our public services continue to rise. We can't keep longing for the past while ignoring today's opportunities. Our future relies on governing rules that receive responsible growth rather than aim to change. Instead of balancing progress with protection, this draft amendment piles on restrictions, causes contradictions that make it nearly impossible for Mason County to attract new opportunities. A data center is not for a paper mill, a chemical plant, or a trucking terminal. It's required in most facilities, including Illinois, no odor, and very little traffic. Yet the staff proposes much quicker settlement with standards for the data centers than our other industries. That's not good planning. That's a policy designed to exclude. For example, although the draft says emissions can't be acceptable beyond the property line, it also requires a 4-foot berm in every public. If nothing can be seen, heard, or smelled beyond the fence, what exactly is the berm protecting? It's added cost with no measurable benefit. Another section demands the third-party inspection, even though the federal law already requires certified public inspectors for every new electrical and plumbing system. That's duplication that adds cost without adding safety. When you consider that these aspects of plaintiff setback, the redundant inspections, the unnecessary mandates, and pattern emergencies, these are protections, they're obstructions. They serve a few people in all farm income allows them to see land as scenery rather than as someone's property. Meanwhile, their rules make is harder for the neighbors who depend on the land to adapt and move forward. Mason County was built by people who faced change and turned it into progress. We can do it again with zoning that's fair, consistent, and open for opportunity. Let's protect our neighbors without punishing our future. And write rules that welcome responsible growth rather than drive it away.
Teresa Stitt.
She was gonna pass.
Julie Burton.
You have this. Okay. Basically, just want to say that I know a lot of people in the room. I have family members in the room. I have friends in the room. I have Facebook friends in the room, and I don't have anything against anybody. I just want to say that this is something that has got to be more open, and the public in general needs to be able to understand it. And when I look at things, it's like megawatts versus gigawatts. And who knows that? You know, as far as the general public. Nobody really. I know a lot of you do because you're experts, but we're not. So it just has to be put in layman's terms, is all I'm asking. And I just want to say that I live in Mason County, and let's do what's best for our community. Thank you.
Mason, we got 3 more people on the front page, and then we'll calm them down. Okay, Leanne Mattingly. You've been sworn in. He's managing to check them out. Just keep it going. It's not. Trying to touch this new.
I was going to play that for 2 minutes. That's 60 decibels. In the thing I read in the paper, where you won't have between 55 decibels and 60 decibels, that's for these people that are living close by the data centers are going to have to listen to it. I think it's very loud to have to listen to this all the time, 24/7, 365 days. It was also brought out that there's a 3-mile radius that it will go out. So we in Maysville, Kentucky, in the city, are going to hear that also. So I really encourage you, 40 decibels, go and listen to 60 decibels again. It's loud, y'all. Inside the dab centers, it's between 80 and 96 decibels. So can you imagine workers being in there and listening to that? Jerry McGovern, you can look it up. He's an expert on the impact of digital technology and the environment. Having one near your home is like having a lawnmower in your living room 24/7. On-site generators have intake and exhaust fans, which are 55 to 85 decibels typically. Even more noticeable in rural areas. At nighttime, the loudness increases, buzzing, low-pitched roar. Under techtarget.com, headaches, anxiety due to lack of sleep and stress, cardiovascular risk due to lack of sleep and stress. HVR.org, diesel generators, tier 2, they release large amounts of tiny air pollutants. Nitrogen oxides, which are called silent killers, they penetrate deep into lungs and link to asthma, lung cancer, and heart attacks. One last note, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Thank you.
Teresa? Steve?
Pass.
Pass?
Yes, it's already been discussed.
Steve? Paul? Fuller? Fuller? No? Okay, that's the end of the list.